I like crits, and if I want you to crit, I'm gonna need a crit.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for an album review, Meshuggah Koloss. Meshuggah is a Swedish metal band. This is their 7th full-length LP. I've received a lot of requests to talk about this LP, and it's not difficult to see why. Meshuggah has a pretty heavy reputation in the metal world. They have a sound, they have a style that has influenced countless groups over the 20 plus years they've been releasing material, and part of what has built this empire is consistency. They've never really put out a terrible record. However, they've never really ventured that far outside of what has been proven to work for them. Almost every studio album these guys have released has been a very slight variation on the same theme, endlessly perfecting one single approach. Jens Kidman's vocals used to be a little bit more intelligible on the band's older stuff. Of course, over the years with new technology, the group's heaviness factor has increased. But I gotta say, on this new LP, it's pretty much Meshuggah as usual. You know, not much for me to report in terms of what this album really offers to longtime fans. Sorry to disappoint the people who were asking me to review this, but I think just constant comparisons to every single other LP Meshuggah has released before this one would be kind of like splitting hairs. I'm not trying to say there's not differences between this LP and others that this band has put out, and we will get into a few of them later, but I'd much rather focus on maybe trying to turn people onto this group. So if this is the first time you're running into Meshuggah, or you've been curious about them, you're in for a very heavy treat. Meshuggah's world pretty much revolves around the riff, which is nothing entirely new, but the way the group approaches this, that's what sets them apart. First, it's the guitar tone that these guys put out, which has, just like I said earlier, been a result of constantly perfecting, trying this one thing, making it bigger, making it better, making it heavier. The sound is a little more commonplace than it used to be, but it's mostly because so many groups try to copycat this style. The chugs that Meshuggah pushes out there are so thick, they're so bassy. And when they bend a string, they really let it ring out. It gives off this sound like wow. It's so guttural, it's so thick and deep and mechanical. It sounds like something being dismantled or destroyed or crushed. The guitars on this LP are basically the size of the explosions in like a Michael Bay film. The opener alone, I Am Colossus, just gives me this image of a giant robot demon roaring out with fire and molten lava pouring past its jaws. And all of the riffs are pretty much emphasizing just a really heavy groove, and Meshuggah's grooves are really how they define themselves. The group is always looking for some kind of odd time signature to play in, or just seeking some kind of way to take a rhythm, take a groove, and just diddle it, just throw it off. And helping this out are the drums. Though the guitars on a Meshuggah record are incredibly important, I feel like in a way the guitars are there to kind of emphasize all the awesome stuff the drums are doing. To me, the drums usually steal the show on a Meshuggah LP, and this is no different. The beats, the rhythms are ever changing, always improvising, lots of tasteful fills. The drums sound fantastic, whether they're doing something slow and primal, like Behind the Sun, or kind of speeding things up and throwing a double bass drum in there, like on The Demon's Name. I am admittedly a bigger fan of the slower tracks, though, where the band really hits just very sludgy, molasses speed tempos, and they let those guitars ring out and get really heavy. They just feel gargantuan on those tracks. Now, with all these guitars and drums and Kidman's kind of mid-range growl covering every single one of these songs, Meshuggah kind of toys with the foundation of what sort of groove metal, new metal, jump the fuck up riffs, but with some fantastic drumming, some really interesting guitar tone, a lot of heaviness, and technical ability. Meshuggah is a metal band that puts out energetic tracks with heavy riffs that appeal beyond the aggression and actually make this sound, this style, something worth giving a second chance if you've already kind of written it off. It's got a lot of virtuosity, and though it is technical music, it doesn't come across as difficult because Meshuggah pumps these grooves out so naturally, with so much ease, with so much energy. It's just easy to get into the track and maybe not even feel like you're listening to something that is all that complex. But I did not come here to just simply praise this LP because I do have some issues with it. Though there are some variations in speed on this album, there's not really many variations in intensity or volume. Nearly every song here kind of shoots for the same level of those two things. The last track is a lone guitar instrumental that's very soft, very gentle, kind of pretty, but it's a little too late. Though there are some highlights on here that get me going. Break Those Bones, Marrow, Demuge. Listening to this LP all the way through can be a little bit of a drag, especially since the faster tracks on here feel a little bit too mechanical for me to really get into the grooves, to really feel them, which is funny because that's not an issue I had with faster tracks from the band's previous material. I definitely did not feel that way on Chaosphere. And another issue I'm kind of having is the guitar solos. I know the guitar solos have never been a primary focus in Meshuggah's music, especially since these days the riffs have taken so much precedent. But there are a lot of times on this LP where I wish the guitars would change things up at least a little bit and attempt to do something that is just as technical as the drums. Like the track Behind the Sun. Toward the beginning of the song, the guitars are just kind of playing this very lazy, sort of atmospheric lead. I'm not even sure what it is. It's just kind of there to add another sound. And toward the end of the track, this very kind of blurry and boring guitar solo comes in and just does not really add that much. And it's mixed so low, it's buried. I can barely make it out. And the guitar solo toward the end of The Demon's Name is not good. Oh man. It's just tapping, and it sounds like it's tapping at a completely different tempo. It just kind of feels like tapping just to have tapping on the album because it sounds technical on the surface, but there's not really an interesting tap pattern or anything going on with the solo. So as much as I do like the riffs on this thing, the guitars really don't do much more than that. To me, Chaosphere and Destroy, Erase, Improve had way better solos. The solo on the opener to Chaosphere is still one of the weirdest solos I've heard on a metal record. And as far as style and variation goes throughout an entire album, Catch 33 had way more to offer. So overall, I did think this was a likable LP, but it will not be going down as one of my favorites in the Meshuggah discography. I'm kind of feeling a light to decent 6 on this thing, but what do you guys think of it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Why? And what should I review next? Anthony Fantano, Meshuggah, Koloss, forever.